Hello Enchanting Creatives! In this video, you're going to learn the step-by-step process to create a pour painting that you'll be proud of even if you're a beginner, and your creation is going to leave your friends and family awestruck. So the supplies you're going to need for this pour, along with a beginner supply checklist that will help you avoid burning hundreds of dollars on unnecessary and ineffective supplies, are all listed inside my free acrylic pouring guide for beginners. You can download it for free by clicking on the link that is listed in the description box and the comment section down below, or by going to loveacrylicpainting.com/guide. Let's get started. We're going to be mixing 5 different colors, so you will need 5 different cups. You're also going to need 2 8x8-inch canvases like this one. Put some push pins on each corner to help elevate the canvas off from the painting surface. And we're going to mix 4 ounces total of black paint and 2 ounces of each of the other paints. Now this is way more than you need, but I want to make sure you have enough paint to make several paintings if you desire. Plus, you're also able to store your leftover paint mixes inside these awesome cups. I love these plastic cups because they have lids and graduated markings, which are very convenient when it comes to measuring your paint and pouring medium. All of our paint mixes will consist of 1 part paint to 3 parts pouring medium. So you're going to add 0.5 ounces of paint and then add 1.5 ounces of Floetrol for all of your colors except the black, because we're going to be doing a lot more black than the rest of the colors. Keep in mind that these paint mixing ratios work only for the specific paints and brands that I'm using in this video. If you decide to use other brands or colors which could be thicker or thinner than what I'm using, then you will have to do some adjusting on your end to get the right consistency. Let's mix our white paint. Add 0.5 ounces of paint in one of your cups. These paints have a very thick consistency, so it might be a little bit tricky to get your paint to exactly the 0.5 ounce mark, but don't worry, it doesn't need to be exactly precise. As long as you put roughly 0.5 ounces, you'll be okay. Now you're going to add pouring medium to make your paints more fluid. Make sure you shake the bottle really well and also strain it before adding it to your paint. Even up to this date, pure Floetrol or my special pouring mix inside the free guide are my go-to recipes for almost all of my pours. Of course, I use other recipes for the bloom technique or for other pours where I don't want any cells, but for the most part, Floetrol is my go-to pouring medium. So mix your paint and pouring medium until completely smooth, and then add about 1/6 of an ounce of water and mix again. Mix, mix, mix until everything is completely integrated. So you're now going to repeat this process for all of your paint colors, for the turquoise, the primary yellow, and the ultramarine blue. So for all of these colors, you're going to add 0.5 ounces of paint to 1.5 ounces of Floetrol and 1/6 of an ounce of water. We'll talk about the black paint mix a little bit later. If you want to get more lacing or cells in your painting, then I recommend doing one more paint mix consisting of a metallic color like gold, copper, or silver. But make sure you get a paint that has that same thickness like all the other paints that you see that I'm using. So get one that comes in a tube, a Liquitex or an Amsterdam or an Artist Loft paint. So you can use this same ratio of 0.5 ounces of paint to 1.5 ounces of Floetrol and 1/6 of an ounce of water. Now for your black paint mix, we're going to be mixing a total of 4 ounces. So you're going to add 1 ounce of paint inside your cup and 3 ounces of Floetrol, and then mix that up really well. Now you're going to add about 1/3 of an ounce and mix again. For this painting, we will be using the acrylic pouring dip technique. And one thing I want you to keep in mind is that acrylic pouring has a mind of its own. So you will get a different result than what I got, but that is okay. I want you to learn to embrace the beauty of it. And if you don't like it at all, I will show you a little bit later what you can do to get a different result without wasting paint or wasting a canvas. So let's get started here. Place your canvases on your silicone mat or baking pan. And you will also want to get some gloves because black paint will really stain your hands and fingernails. Now add some black paint to one of your canvases and spread it out. I highly recommend that if you're a beginner, you spread out your paint with a spatula rather than with your hands. So you're not left with some areas that have a lot of paint and then some other areas that have very little paint, because that will affect the end result. So make sure that you evenly smooth out the paint and that you cover all the sides as well. And as you can see, I made the mistake of adding paint to the second canvas. You don't want to do this as the black paint will mute down the colors that you will be adding on top of it. So instead, you want to use a clean canvas. And you'll see later that I replaced that canvas with a clean one. You can see that right now. So one really important thing to keep in mind when doing this technique is that your base coat layer of paint has to be really thick because you're going to be dipping another canvas right on top of it. So you don't want to end up with bare spots on either of your canvases. So add more black paint so you have a thick coat and try to spread it out as evenly as possible. This is where a spatula will come in very handy. So again, if you're a beginner, use a spatula and get that top layer to be as even as possible. If you want, you can add a little bit of paint on the other canvas around the corners just to minimize the bare spots that you could get when dipping your bare canvas into the paint. Make sure you cover all the sides so you don't have any bare spots. Just don't get any paint in the middle. Here's a great tip for you. Baby wipes are an excellent tool for cleaning your hands and gloves when you're painting. Now you're going to use your colored paint mixes to make a design like you see me doing here. If you want your design to look neater, you can place your paint mixes inside some squirt bottles or use some disposable plastic pipettes or droppers to place your paints in a neater fashion. So I made 3 circles with my turquoise paint, and then I'm going to add another circle inside those 3 circles with my ultramarine color. Inside those circles, I'm going to add again another circle, but with my white paint. And right in the middle, I'm just adding a little bit of that primary yellow. Now I'm going around my 3 circles and adding some yellow dots all the way around. Then I'm going to come in with my white paint and just add some white right on top of those yellow dots. Once you've placed all your paints, you're now going to flip your clean canvas on top of the canvas with paint. You will gently put a little pressure over the whole surface of the canvas to make sure that the canvas is touching the paint underneath it. And you can either, slide a piece of cardboard or a credit card across the surface of the canvas to apply light pressure and make sure that the canvas and the paint are touching. Or you can do what I did here, just use your hands to, press lightly on the back of that canvas. Sometimes when I do this with my bare hands, it's just a little bit more difficult to get to every single area. So I find that using a cardboard or a credit card is a lot better for gently, pressing on that top of the canvas and making sure that the paint really touches the whole bottom of that canvas and everything is evenly distributed. Now you will lift your canvas straight up and then set it on the side. If you don't like how your painting turned out, you can always re-add some paint to one of your canvases and then re-dip your other canvas right on top of it. You don't want to do this so much because you don't want to do it over and over because eventually all your colors are just going to muddy up. But you can do it one second time if the first time that you did it didn't really come out as expected. So I'm just adding black in the areas where I saw that I didn't have enough black paint. And then I added all my circles of, colors and my dots. And I'm just going to re-dip my canvas right on top of that. Now you're going to lift your canvas straight up and then set it on the side again. And if you don't like an area, you can always add a little bit more paint, just like you see me add it right here. And you can either lightly press the area with your gloved hand or with the back of a spoon or a spatula. You can also use your mouth to blow out the paint in some areas. Just make sure that you don't over manipulate it or you will start to see a lot of muddiness. But it is okay to add, a little bit more color in certain areas. And then, like I said, use a spatula. It's a lot better to use a spatula or a spoon to press right on top of it rather than your gloved hand like you see me do, just because the gloved hand is a little bit harder to control where you're pressing. You can't really see, your hand is way too big. You can't really see where you're pressing. And it's much easier to just have a spatula, a small spatula, and press that on the area where you added that additional paint. But if you don't have anything else, go ahead and use your gloved hand to press very, very lightly. And if you have some bare spots where you're supposed to have some black paint, just add some black paint on top of it to cover them up. And if you have a spatula on hand, it's a great idea to use your spatula to smooth out those black areas where you added some extra black paint. Here's how my two paintings look like after I, lightly manipulated each one. I used my mouth to, blow out some areas. Now, let's say you definitely don't like your painting. Well, you can just scrape the paint off, mix the paint until you get a neutral grayish looking color, and use that color as your base. Or you can save that gray paint for a different pour and just re-add some black base coat to your scraped canvas and start all over. For this example, I decided to just use my gray looking paint. Keep in mind that the canvas that you're going to be dipping is a canvas that is no longer clean, so you will get a little bit more muted colors in some areas. So the clue for a vibrant pour painting is not to have too much paint on your canvas. So you either want a canvas that is completely clean, or you want a canvas that has just a very, very thin layer of paint. Now pour your colors in any pattern that you'd like over the gray paint that's on your silicone mat. And here I'm just doing another pattern just so that you can see that you can get different patterns just by placing your colors in different ways. Now dip your canvas into it. And again, slightly press on the back of the canvas to make sure that the paint and canvas are touching. And lift the canvas straight up. You can leave it as it is or make some additional designs with the wooden skewer or your fingers. And here's how mine looks. I'm going to actually add a little bit of a design down here, kind of like a spiral on both ends of this painting. But again, you don't have to do this. This is just something additional that I'm doing, and you can just leave it as it is. Now look at those beautiful colors, especially the center. It's so vivid, so vibrant. The colors on the edges are a little bit more muted and they fade into the background. But, overall, this is a really nice painting. You can see some cells happening throughout this painting, and you will get more cells when you use metallic paint. So I highly recommend that you maybe choose a gold or a copper or a silver paint so that you can get a little bit more lacing or more cells happening throughout your whole painting. Here I'm doing that spirally thing at the end of the painting, but again, this is just optional. You do not have to do this, but feel free to play around. Now here's how the paintings look like after they dried. And Floetrol does make the paintings kind of dull a little bit. The colors look a little bit more matte when you use Floetrol, but that can be fixed by adding a coat of a clear acrylic varnish. So here I'm just using this polyurethane from Minwax to add a little bit of glossiness back and bring back the vibrancy of those colors. Here's the final result. Look at that glossiness. Look at the vibrancy of those colors. It's just an overall beautiful painting. And imagine if you add some metallics to it. Oh my gosh, that is just going to pop. This is the second painting, and I was just playing around with it. I started, making some wispy lines on the edges. And like I said, this is all about having fun and enjoying acrylic pouring. So, just feel free to experiment. And here's the third painting. There are some areas that are super vibrant and others look a little bit more muted, and that's completely normal because we did use a canvas that already had some paint on it. Remember that I told you that if your canvas is not completely bare, your colors will end up being a little bit more muted. Well, that's kind of what happened here, but it does have some areas where those colors are really popping out, especially in the middle. I love that middle part. Now, once you add that coat of spray varnish, those colors are going to pop out a little bit more. They're not going to look as muted as they look right now. Look at it. Those colors look a little bit more vibrant just by adding a coat of spray varnish. If you want to continue on this fun and exciting pouring journey, check out loveacrylicpainting.com/pouring 101. Hope you enjoyed this step-by-step tutorial along with your free beginner's guide.